which is a most important part of CTET. Like in the yesterday class, we have discussed about the child development pedagogy, and as a whole, we have discussed what all the components being there. But as in this section, we will be focusing on the inclusive education. So let's see what all we're going to discuss in the next 1 hour. The first section will include about the structure and content of CTET. And second, we talk about the brief content material and reference study material, because it is equally important when we are preparing for any kind of competitive test, especially when it comes to the CTET. We need to see what is the authentic learning material which are there. And then last, not the least, most importantly, we will try to analyze the previous year questions, and we also try to see like how you need to select the most appropriate alternative. So before we begin with, let's see what is the structure when it comes to the child development pedagogy. Like yesterday, we discussed about like there are in total 30 questions, and there is paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 1, you all know, is for the classes 1 to 5, and paper 2 for the classes 6 to 8. And in paper 1, the age group comes to 6 to 11 years. And paper 2, the age group is 11 to 14 years. So in this particular child development pedagogy, as it comprises of 30 questions, there are 3 different sections. The first section talks about the child development, in which we have 15 questions. The second and most important is the concept of inclusive education and understanding children with special needs. And it comprised of 5 questions. So generally, when you look upon the question papers, the previous question paper, you will see like in the minimum questions comes to be 5, but it may extend to 6 to 7 also. And the third is learning and pedagogy, which comprises 10 questions. So let's try to understand today the inclusive education part of the child development and pedagogy. So in this, like when you see in this concept of inclusive education and understanding children with special needs, when you see this section itself, you will see the 2 important terms are there. One is inclusive education, other is the children with special needs. So what, as an CTET aspirant, you need to understand. You need to understand the inclusive education from the perspective of children with special needs. So in this, like 3 important subsections are there from which you will get most questions. So the first is addressing learners from diverse background, including disadvantaged and deprived. So from this, you could see like it talks about the disadvantaged and the deprived learners. And the second subsection is about addressing the needs of children with learning difficulties, impairment, etc. Like in the next discussion, we will talk about like what the learning difficulties and impairment comprised of. And then the third one is addressing the talented, creative, and specially able learners. So now the most important question that comes into our mind, we have these 3 sections, but because this is a CTET competitive exam, we are not having some kind of reference material which we can go through, so that which help us to prepare for the exam. So for that, first of all, let's try to understand what all comes into these subsections. Yeah. So when you look upon the subsection 1, that talks about the deprived and the disadvantaged children. So most importantly, you need to understand the concept of inclusive education. So as a teacher, because you all are teaching in the classroom, but yes, preparing for the competitive exam, you need to look upon the question from the inclusive classroom aspect. So when it comes to the inclusive classroom, you need to go with the philosophy. You need to understand the attitude behind it, because mindset of the teachers being there when it comes to the inclusive education, that you need to understand. And most importantly, what are the principle of inclusive education? So the first subsection of inclusive education comprised of the approaches related to inclusive education, because we see like when it comes to the inclusive education, we need to respect everybody, we need to understand the diversity, the pedagogy need to be child centered, we need to provide the barrier free environment, and most importantly, the curriculum adaptation need to be there. And beside that, because now we have a national education policy in the competitive exam, especially in the inclusive education, the focus of the questions may revolve around our NEP 2020 recommendation. So I also suggest all the competitive exams who are going to be, prepare for this, go with the NEP chapter 6 also, because it has focused specifically on the equitable and inclusive education learning for all. So when you go through with that, then also you will have an understanding about the inclusive education, and most of the questions are also comprised from there itself. So now next one, like I'll just go through with the one of the question you can have. Yeah. So let's look upon the question which we have taken from the previous year question paper related to this section 1. So if you look upon this question, like this is the question. Given below are two statements, one marked as assertion A and other as reason. Read the statements and choose the correct one. So in this you could see there are two options being there. One is the assertion, another is a reason. So in assertion is one statement is being given, and you need to, once you read this statement, you need to take the copy, like you can have a notebook with you and see whether this statement is true or false. So let's read this statement. Assertion A: inclusion incorporates acceptance of differences and ensuring that all forms of exclusion are removed. So when you read this term, this statement, what you get to know, that acceptance of differences is there, and we need to ensure that exclusion are removed. So two important terms comes out from this statement. One is acceptance, another is removal of exclusion. So do you think that this statement is correct? If you think so, just write a tick mark just on the notebook. Tick mark this right. Then go with the reason. Diversity should be valued rather than looking at it as an obstacle. So like whether this statement is true or false, or you could see that this is related to assertion. Like diversity should be valued, we all know, yes, because we all have individual differences, and that should be valued rather than looking it as an obstacle. This is correct, right? So in this, like you could see, there are, in these kind of questions like assertions and reason, four type of alternatives are being there, and that is the set pattern for all the alternatives. So let's look upon what all the alternatives being given related to this question. So it's there, both A and R are correct. So like true. But R is not the correct explanation of A. So if you look upon A and B, A is what? Inclusion, incorporate, acceptance. We said this is true. R, we say this is true. But R is not the correct explanation of A. But it is not that. So if we have tick mark it right. We said that this statement is correct. So R may be the reason of A, right? So this option will be removed. Then come to the second one. Both A and R are correct or true. That is true, because we have already said that these two statements are true. And R is the correct explanation of A. So when you look upon this option, it says that R is the reason, or R is the related to A. So it is already there. We know that inclusion, we need to accept the differences, and exclusions need to be removed. For that, we need to value the diversity, right? And we need to we need to look, don't look it as an obstacle. So we think, yes, this statement is correct, so we will keep it correct. Both, then third one is both A and R are false. That's not there, and A is true, and but R is false. And we have already done this. A is true and R is true, and then R is the correct explanation of A. So what is the correct answer or correct option for this? Like, because you need to see the appropriate alternative from all these four. So the most appropriate comes to the second option, which says that both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. I hope this is understood. Like you all have understood this. So when you have such kind of question where you have assertions and reason, try to see whether the reason is related to A, and whether the assertion A, the statement is there, it is correct or not, or maybe it is true or not. And then the reason also, it is true or not. So either A may be true, R may be true, or both A and R may be true, or A is false, R may be false, or both A and R may be false. So accordingly, you need to choose the most appropriate option. Now, moving to second section. So that's we have for the learning difficulties and impairment. So in this, what all the major, what we'll say, the topic that need to be covered. So when it comes to learning difficulties, we need to understand the specific learning disabilities. So in specific learning disability, we need to know what are the types of specific learning disabilities, what are the characteristics related to specific learning disabilities, and then what are the teaching strategies that a teacher need to use when it comes to the different types of specific learning disabilities. So I'm going to give you a brief about it so that you can understand it. So when we talk about the specific learning disability, generally we'll talk about three major types of disabilities, in specific learning disability. That comes your dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. So the word dys is related to inability, we all know, and lexia is related to words. So when it comes to words, that means something related to reading is there. Then second is dyscalculia. Dys is inability and calculia is related to calculation. It may be related to mathematics. Third one is dysgraphia. So dys, as we said, inability, and graphia is something related to writing. So most of the question what we have observed, if you're going to analyze the previous year questions, you will see most of the question comes from the types of specific learning disability, and that too in the direct form. So once you understood what is dyslexia, what is dyscalculia, what is dysgraphia, and the moment you get this question, within a second you can come out with the most appropriate option or answer. So now when it comes to dyslexia, what is dyslexia? It is an inability to read, difficulty in reading. So when it comes to dyscalculia, it is difficulty with the numbers. So inability to do some kind of mathematical calculations or mathematical numeracy, some kind of issues are there. When it comes to dysgraphia, it is inability to write or some related to handwriting. So when you have an understanding of these three types of specific, these are the three major types of specific learning disabilities. So once you have an understanding of these three types of specific learning disability, accordingly you can also work upon the teaching strategies. Because for example, when it comes to dyslexia, reading है, तो what you need to do कि जो भी strategies reading के लिए teacher use करता है, उससे रिलेटेड अगर कोई भी आपके पास ऑप्शन आएगा, दैट यू विल गोइंग टू मार्क एज एन मोस्ट अप्रोप्रिएट रिस्पॉन्स. कैलकुलिया है, न्यूमरेसी से रिलेटेड, कैलकुलेशन से रिलेटेड, मैथमेटिक्स से रिलेटेड आएगा, तो जो भी आपकी स्ट्रैटेजीज आप मैथमेटिक्स में यूज कर रहे हैं, दैट विल बी द करेक्ट. द सेम गोज फॉर द डिस्ग्राफिया ऑल्सो. आपका हैंड राइटिंग से रिलेटेड है, तो जो भी टीचिंग स्ट्रैटेजीज राइटिंग से रिलेटेड होगी, दैट विल कम अंडर. So now major things also comes upon, like as an approach also we need to cover when it comes to specific learning disabilities. For example, the early identification concept may be there, or it talks about how the teacher need to deal with it. So you just go through with that. Then in this particular section, we have a different type of children with disability, because the title itself say inclusive education and children with special needs. So inclusive education, we have talked about the section A, talks about the general philosophy we have. Now we're moving to the section 2, that is related to children with special needs. So for this, when you go with the children with special needs, you must be aware with what are the different type of children with disabilities, and that too according to the recent act. For this, you need to go through with the Right of the Person with Disability Act 2016. There you will get to know the different type of disability. You need not to refer to any document. That is just a 2-page document. Like in this, once you go to that document, you will find the last one, different type of disability. So within that 2 page, you will get all type of disability, which also include the characteristics, like how they have defined, and then characteristics, and accordingly as a teacher, based upon your experience, because you all having a rich experience into your teaching, based upon that you need to find out the strategies also. So that accordingly, because when you look upon the previous year questions, that's basically all upon your approach which you are using it daily. But what it comes in, when we'll see the words competition, generally we just stuck our mind mind into that, oh, that is something very big which we cannot deal it. But just moving out from that mindset, you need to see this is something which we are already doing. Only thing is, when we have a different option, we need to find out the most appropriate ones. So just taking you back, like for this, when it comes to the different type of children with disability, I'm just giving you a glance. Otherwise, you can go through with the Right to Person with Disability Act 2016, where you will get all the details. Just for your basic understanding, I'm covering this. Like when it comes to different type of disability, there are physical disability, which includes your visual, which includes your hearing, and cerebral palsy. And if you analyze these questions, like the previous year question paper, you will find most of the direct questions are there, which talks about the characteristics related to the disability, right? So if you are aware with the characteristics related to that, you can easily find out the appropriate response for that. For example, in your previous question, if you will see, most of the questions are covered about the visual impairment and the cerebral palsy also, and autism spectrum disorder, ADHD. We will also take you to the previous question paper. You will find all the questions related to this. But this I'm telling you as a ready reckoner or as a notes which you can use. So when it comes to the visual, we know that's something related to the vision, right? So it may be a partial or complete vision. So when it comes to the child who's having a visual impairment, the child may have a difficulty in reading with the printed material. And then maybe the child having a challenges in the mobility, so some kind of orientation strategies need to be there. When it comes to the hearing impairment, of course, it's difficulty with hearing sounds, speech, or delayed language development. So the characteristics associated with each type of disability, if you understand, you can easily crack those questions which comes under your inclusive education. So most importantly, yes, I also would like to focus upon here when it comes to the hearing impairment, the teaching strategies is of course the sign language. But at the same time, the teachers can use certain kind of visual aids, lip reading is also there. And like accordingly, you can focus more on the written instruction. So why I'm focusing on all these things? Because this type of questions, when you see into the competitive exam, more are related to the direct questions. So when it comes to the direct, what you need to know, the definition or the terminology related to this, and then followed with the characteristics, and then with the teaching strategies. So I think you all are teaching into the schools and we're talking about the inclusive classroom. So how you look upon from the perspective of that student who is having a hearing impairment, accordingly, you just need to choose the appropriate response. Then is your physical impairment में हमारा आता है locomotor. So when it comes to your locomotor, then again difficulty in movement. Accordingly, the teaching strategy includes your modification in terms of furniture, some kind of assistive devices, and flexible sitting. And next category is your intellectual disability. So when you see the intellectual disability, most of the question you will see come from here also. So intellectual disability, we have a specific learning disability also. We have an autism spectrum disorder also. We have an ADHD also. So if you see the previous year question, you will find most of the questions are focusing on ASD. Most of them are from the ADHD. So if you know what is the characteristics of ADHD, what is the characteristic of autism, you can easily crack that. So the important is you need to understand, you need to know that concept, and for that you need not to go through with lots of notes. Only if you go with the Applicability Act, it will be good enough. So then, like for example, we'll talk about the autism spectrum disorder, right? ASD is something in which the child has a major problem with the communication and social interaction, and the repetitive behavior is being reflected. So when you see these kind of questions into your competitive exam, you will see they will ask you like autism spectrum disorder, having a problem with communication, academics, or social. So accordingly, you need to find out the most appropriate. But for that, you need to know what is the characteristics of that particular disability. Then it comes to the cerebral palsy, and most of the questions being also asked from the ADHD as I talk about. So ADHD, you'll talk about like maybe the attention, impulsivity the child is having. So accordingly, we need to see the symptoms as well, followed with the teaching strategies. And most importantly, you also need to understand it from the inclusive perspective, not from the special education. So why I'm saying this? Because when we are attempting the question, generally we have a tendency to look it from the special education perspective. Generally, this is what we people have experienced. But when it comes to the question, look it from the inclusive education approach, because the paper itself is on the inclusive education. I hope it's clear till now. Can we move further? Yes. So now let's look upon the question which comes under this category, that is your section 2. That is upon the learning disabilities and impairment. So when you look upon this question, dyslexia is a. So there are alternatives. So what we have already discussed this is inability and that is related to your reading. So moment you look upon the options, you will get to know what is the correct answer in this, that is developmental reading disorder, because lexia is there which is related to reading. So within a second you able to solve this question. In other question which are lengthy or long, you may take some time to interpret this, but when you have a direct question like this, it will be solved in just a second, and the time which you going to take in rest of the question which require long statement or just comprehend it more, then that could be covered through this direct question. Is it clear till now? Can we move further? Okay. Yeah. So looking upon the section 3, we have in the section 3 talked about your gifted children, talking about your talented children as well as the specially able children. So when you analyze the previous year question papers, you will see that most of the question in this inclusive education covered from the gifted children, because this gifted children is also very important. When we'll talk about the children with special needs, we do look upon the children who are having a certain kind of academic problem, maybe due to the sensory impairment or maybe some kind of intellectual disability. But at the same time, we also need to go through with the material in which we get some understanding about the gifted and talented learners also. So when you see these questions, how you being confused with this? Like, because we have a gifted term also, we have a talented term also, as well as a specially able also. So for that, we need to understand who all are the gifted children. So when it comes to the gifted children, generally gifted children are the ones like who are having a high intelligence. But at the same time, you see these are the children who are having a major problem in adjustment in the classes. So they have a lot of social and emotional problem. So when you look upon the questions, most of the questions are related to they excel in academic, social and emotional, right? But if you know the characteristics, if you know about the gifted children, then you can easily come out with the option, yes, gifted children may be good in the academics, but they have a problem with the social, have a problem with the emotional concept, right? So immediately you see these 3-4 terms coming together, you will just remove that option. So it is very important to understand. Yes, next is related to the education strategies, related to what the teacher can do. Because most of the time, the questions when you look upon it, focusing upon the strategies part also. So when you look upon these like gifted children, they generally because they have an high intelligence, they quickly respond, they quickly complete the work. So in that case, lot of accelerations, enrichment programs be there. So acceleration is basically moving, speedily, moving forward. Like for example, you're going to skip the classes, like skipping the gradings, or maybe you giving in some kind of enrichment material. So as a teacher, when you are focusing on these questions, try to look upon the education strategies. Then you could see the creative learners also. We may have a students who are very creative, so when it comes to the creative, they're good with the imagination, they are more curious, they are independent thinkers also. So most importantly, the question when you look upon the creativity, so we generally assume that creativity is something which is related to the art, but it is not only art, it is basically the ability to think in a new and valuable ways. So accordingly, you just need to go through with that. And then it comes to the teaching strategies also, very important. So when it comes to your teaching strategies, like because from the inclusive perspective, you talk about, we have a universal design for learning. So try to look upon, like just see the material which are related to the universal design for learning. And I suggest you, because the focus majorly is on the inclusive education, and what the information bulletin of this competitive exam has also suggested, the authentic material, go with the NCERT website, CBSE website. In the CBSE, you will see there is one tab which is on the academic unit. So there you will get one book that is an handbook on inclusive education, and this handbook for inclusive education is a very, very thin pages, very few pages. But in that book itself, you will get to know all about inclusive education. You start with the concept of inclusive education, talk about different children with special needs, talking about the teaching strategies. So most important, when you are preparing for your CTET exam, try to see the authentic material. Don't just go with the guidebooks or go with the internet material, because the questions are related to the material which is being developed by the national bodies, and for that very only 3 to 4 booklets you will go through, then you can easily crack it. It's very easy. Okay, so let's see the kind of question you can get when it comes to this section. Yeah, so when you look upon this, like this is the question from the previous question paper itself, and from the talented, creative and specially able learner. When you look at this question, which of the following is correct in context of gifted children? So when you look upon it, ask what is correct, not sometimes may ask which of the following is not correct. So your reading, your interpretation skill should also be very important in this. And it is like in this question, if you see it, what is there, which of the following is correct in context of gifted children? So let's look upon this option and let's see how many of you are able to do this, and how quickly you do this. So just have a timer and see how many of you come up with the right option. Let's see. So gifted children are free from risk of learning disability. But do you think this statement is appropriate? No, because we also see when it comes to the gifted children, they are also having a comorbidity with specific learning disability. This is based upon the research, and when you go with the learning material, you will also find this. So gifted children are free from risk of learning disability. This statement, when you say, this is not true, right? So then second is like what you will do, you will just cross this statement, this option. Then second is gifted children certainly excel in all areas, academic, social and emotional. So now what happens, like in this area, certainly they have used the word certainly excel. Certainly we don't say that they may, we are not sure about it. So what we need to do, we also need to remove this option, because they may be good with the academic, but because they are having the children with the high intelligence or maybe the high functioning, so in that case they may not be good with social and emotional. And you must have observed, like when it comes to the children who are high achievers also, they're not good with social and emotional, and that is the characteristics associated with the gifted children. So one thing also I would like to suggest here, don't always go with rote memorization. Just go through with the material, and when you have the question papers with you, try to look upon the most appropriate response with reference to your experience also, because most of the time you will see that's a situation based, because they are not asking you the correct response. What they are expecting you, they are expecting you to find out the most appropriate response from the different alternatives given. So when you look upon this particular option, we're going to remove this. Then gifted students are always happy, popular and well adjusted. We also know we cannot say that the gifted children are always happy if they are high achievers or they are good with academics. Not always. Popular may not, and well adjusted may, because these are the children who majorly find lot of the issues in terms of adjustment also. So what we will do, maybe we can remove this because we are not sure about it. Let's see the last alternative we have, and then we need to find out which one is the most appropriate. So like just see this, the fourth one, gifted students learn at comparatively advanced pace than other students. So when you look upon this, yes, we do know कि gifted students क्या होते हैं, वो जल्दी learn करते हैं. That is why हम उनके लिए acceleration, enrichment strategies use करते हैं. So this is the most appropriate response. So I hope this is clear. So far what we have discussed about, the what is inclusive education में हमारा क्या section है, सब sections क्या हैं, और उस सब sections में आपको क्या reading material आप देख सकते हैं. And then followed with this we also try to make you understand कि इस particular subsection में किस तरह का question आया है. Now Like as I already asked you everybody, like look upon the authentic learning material which are there related to inclusive schools or inclusive education. Go with few of the document which are prepared by the national body, for example NCRT. So if you go with the NCRT website, you will get to know about these four major books. There are many other learning material, but why I have selected these four? Because these are the one which are specifically focusing on the questions which are given in the previous papers. So based upon that, we people have gone through the learning material, and what we have found, like most of the content is being covered in all these booklet. So when you look upon the meeting special needs in school, of course we talk about the inclusive education concept, we talk about the different type of children with special needs, and most importantly inclusive strategies. So if you want to focus on the inclusive strategies, go with that. And I discuss about the section 1, which we talk about the philosophy of inclusive education, approaches related to inclusive education, principles of inclusive education, and most importantly the attitude, your mindset. So when you read this particular book, you will find that philosophy, you will find that importance of inclusive education. And this is, the book is being developed in a very easy language. You can just go through with it, and then you can move with the question related to this. Then the second learning material which you can go through is the educational rights of children with special need. So in this, when you go through with it, you will find a lot of the questions related to the special educational need. For example, they will discuss about the different type of disabilities, they will focusing upon some of the teaching strategies, and they also covering some part of the Right to Education Act. So this book, I will say, not only going to make you prepare for the inclusive education, but because this is a child development pedagogy paper, and when you look upon this paper, it talks about the educational psychology related to the diverse learning needs of the children. So when it comes to psychology, understanding psychology, what best you can understand, when you have the understanding of inclusive education, because inclusive education itself talk about diversity, talks about individual differences. So this document, if you're going to go through, it makes you prepare not only for inclusive education, but yes, related to few of the interconnected or indirect questions which are related to your child pedagogy and development. Then, as I said, most of the questions we will cover about the autism also, maybe with the ADHD, and with a specific learning disability as well. So for autism also, there is a one booklet. This is a visual based booklet. You can just go through, just you need to give a glance, just read, and it is also very important, like we are discussing about how to attempt the questions, CTET, but equally it is also important how you're going to prepare for it. So not, because preparation always come first and then attempting comes later on. So preparation part is very important. And when it comes to the preparation, you need to understand what kind of right material I need to go through with this. So this is the second one, that includes including children with autism in primary classroom. Then the another learning material I would suggest you go with the NCRT itself. You will get all these on the NCRT website itself. Then is your index for inclusive schools also. Again, philosophy, approaches, your few of the RPWD Act also it talks about. So just give a glance of all this. And yes, another document which I have not mentioned here, but I've already discussed with you, that is the handbook of inclusive education prepared by CBSE. This that handbook is also a comprehensive handbook and makes you prepare for the inclusive education. So just go through, so what you can do, you can just analyze the question papers and then go through with all this material. You will automatically get to know most of the questions you will be attempting being prepared from these material. Now, most important part you all must be waiting for. Yes. So that's is the analyzing the previous year questions, because when it comes to the previous year questions, we need to know how the questions are being there, what type of questions are there which are related to inclusive education. And I'm pretty sure when I'm going to show you the previous year question papers, you will feel so confident. Oh, this is just a matter of click, because this is something which we've already discussed. But as a teacher, we were not being aware about how to go through with it, and what is the right material we need to understand. So all these things. So now let's have a look up upon the two last year, question paper related to it. Yeah. So first is previous year question paper 1. Can we have the PDF of this, please? Previous year question paper 1. Let's try to look upon what are the questions being there. Yes. So this is the sample question paper of year 26. And then when you come down to this, so go to, like, this is the part 1. So go to part 1. Yes. Down, please. Come down, sir. Yes, part 1. So this is the child development and pedagogy. This is how the question paper looks like for this. Now, like in this, you will get 30 questions in total, right? So in this 30 questions, as I said, the 5 will be the minimum questions from the inclusive education. It makes seat to 7 also. So why I say exceed to 7 also, because now when it comes to the policy, gender is also an important part of our inclusive education. We cannot ignore that. So you will see few of the question from the gender as well. So now coming down, sir, I request you please go to question number 6 of this. Yes, yes, sir. Please, sir, stop. Yeah. So, yeah, look up on the question number 6. Which of the following sets describe ways in which a school should be inclusive? Yeah. So when you look upon this question what comes? Talks about the inclusive approach, and it comes from the section A, which we discussed. So what it talks about? Modification of curriculum is required. So yes, we can say it may be, हम इसको yes कर सकते हैं. Then expecting students to totally adapt to the school culture. Now, when it comes to the inclusive, first we need to inclusion का क्या है मतलब? Welcoming, acceptance, and valuing diversity. But here, this option, when you look upon, do you think this is the correct option for this, which goes with the question? Because it talk about the describe ways in which a school should be inclusive. A school cannot be an inclusive school when we expect the students to adopt to that school culture. The school has to change. It's not the student, or it's not the child who has to change. So if the child has to change, then it is not an inclusive school. So we can see like on this option, we can easily exclude. Then fostering an ethos of care and respect. Yes, when it comes to inclusion talks about care, respect, welcoming. So that third option is there. Yes, we can take it correct. Then opportunities for collaborative learning. Inclusion is all about collaboration. Inclusion is all about teamwork. Right. So from this, what we could say, I could say yes, option 1 is correct, option 2 is correct, and option 4 is correct. Right. So here it comes to be like this. Now let's see. But again, this is what I feel. Now we need to look upon the options as well. Right. So when you look upon this, like option 1. So 1 is there. What is that? That is modification of curriculum as required. Right. So in this, what you need to see, like here, when it comes to this second one we have deleted. So from this, can you tell me what is the correct option? 1, 3, and 4. This is what we have got to know. We have marked all these correct. So the moment you have just gone through with the questions, right, and then you can come up to the correct option, that is the first one. Because first option talks about modification of curriculum, third one talks about fostering an ethos of care and respect, and then fourth one talks about opportunity for collaborative learner. So the right option will be, yes, I want all the participants who have attended online to just mark which one is the correct option. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4? Yes, it's 1. Because your second option, that is expecting students to totally adapt to the school culture, is not an inclusive approach, is not an inclusive philosophy. Yes. So move to question number 13, please. Yes. Now look upon, yes, sir, yes. Now look upon this. Which of the 13 question, which of the following typical characteristics is a child struggling with dysgraphia likely to show? Now, when you look this question, this is a what? This is a second section में से आया है, जिसमें हमने बात किया था लर्निंग डिफिकल्टीज की बात की थी हमने, और हमने इसमें बात किया था कि हमारे डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ स्पेसिफिक लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटीज होती हैं, जिसके अंदर हमारी डिसग्राफिया भी एक होती है. तो डिसग्राफिया, एज आई सेड, डिसग्राफिया इज इनएबिलिटी एंड ग्राफिया इज रिलेटेड टू राइटिंग. यस, तो जब आप ये सारे ऑप्शन देखते हैं तो आपको क्या लगता है कि विच वन इज द करेक्ट ऑप्शन? एग्रेशन, फ्रस्ट्रेशन एंड स्ट्रेस, ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता, राइट? इम्पल्सिवनेस, डिफिकल्टी इन कॉन्सेंट्रेशन एंड फॉरगेटनेस, नो, क्योंकि डिस्ग्राफिया के साथ ये आपके करेक्टरिस्टिक्स के साथ मैच नहीं कर रहा. थर्ड, स्लो इन रिटन वर्क, मेक्स पोअरली फॉर्म लेटर एंड हैज डिफिकल्टी कॉपिंग फ्रॉम ब्लैक बोर्ड. तो आप जब ये वाला देखते हैं ऑप्शन, देखो सी दिस इज क्वाइट ऑब्वियस रिस्पॉन्स. ये मतलब बहुत आपका ऑप्शन जो है बहुत ऑब्वियस है, क्योंकि हमने डिस्ग्राफिया का मतलब ही समथिंग रिलेटेड टू राइटिंग है. तो जब आपने यहाँ पे थर्ड ऑप्शन देखते हैं, स्लो इन रिटन वर्क, मेक्स पोअरली फॉर्म लेटर, हैज डिफिकल्टी कॉपिंग फ्रॉम ब्लैक बोर्ड, you get to know that this is the correct answer. So you can see within a second you can give it. So how much time you can save when you have understanding of few of the terms. And these, you know, the question related to the specific learning disability, if you see, are the most repetitive questions. So you will see in every question paper you have the questions related to specific learning disabilities. Then fourth option is withdrawal, guilt and anxiety. This may not be. So what will be the correct answer for this? Yes, what will be the correct answer for this? Third, right? Yes, come down, sir. Next, please. Yes, go to question number 20, sir. Yes, 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 sir, yes, sir. Yeah. So here you could see the question is there. Now, when you look upon this question, this is a question which, you know, is in a long statement. And these are the question which actually takes much time. So you need to be very much calculative and you need to be very smart enough. Because yesterday's session also, the speaker has focused upon working upon the smart skills, not on the hard work. So now you need to be very smart enough when you are going to these type of questions, because here the examiner intention is to take your time so that you kill most of the time in these type of question. So now what you need to do, you can take a notebook with you, right, and then a paper, and then let's see what is the assertion, the statement, and what is the reason which is related to that assertion. Now look upon this. Yes, assertion A, teacher should ensure enough wait time, which is the length of a time a teacher pauses after asking a question, right? Should ensure enough wait time, which is the length of the time a teacher pauses after asking a question. So when you look upon this, it talk about the wait time and then the pauses. Do you think this is the correct one? Yes, do you think this is a correct one? Then just see the yes, it may be. Then second one, if you look upon, diversity is an asset and not an obstacle. This we know, this is a correct. Like diversity we always talk about is an asset, it is not an obstacle, because inclusive approach talks about accepting the diversity. So R is your what? This is true. Now when you look upon these alternative, which one you think is the most appropriate response? Yes, the first one is assertion when you look upon, but do you think that R is related to A? Because you talk about what is the length of the time a teacher pauses after asking a question. Yes. So what will be the most appropriate response for this? A is true, but R is false. Can we say that? No, because R is true, we know. Diversity is an asset. Then both A and R are true, and R is the correct explanation of A. Can we say that? Can we relate it with diversity with the assertion? No, we cannot relate it. So we just remove this. Both A and R are false. It talks about A and R. No, बिकॉज हमने जो रीजन बोला है वो हमने कहा है कि ठीक है, डाइवर्सिटी हमारे लिए एसेट है, ऑब्स्टेकल नहीं है. तो वो हमारा जो थर्ड ऑप्शन है, दैट विल ऑल्सो नॉट बी एक्सेप्टेड. देन बोथ A and R are true, but R is not the correct explanation of A. Yes. So can we give this an option? Yes. Tell me what is the correct. I leave this question up to you. Now you dig your mind and just see what will be the correct response. I want all of you to go through with this. Next question, sir. 22. Yes. Yes, sir. 22. Yes. Yeah, in this, inclusion of students belonging to disadvantaged background require. Now, this particular question is a part of our section A question because it is on the inclusive education philosophy. So it talks about inclusion of a student belonging to disadvantaged background requires. What it requires? Identity-based segregation of students. Do we need to segregate the students? This is not as per the inclusive approach. Consideration of socio-cultural diversity, because we always accept the diversity in terms of socio-cultural background. This we say immediately when we see this question, socio-cultural diversity, we know this is the correct response. Then third, if we can see execution of standardized curriculum. No, it talks about, like when we'll talk about the inclusive approach, it talks about flexible curriculum. It talks about curriculum adaptation and modification. So our third option cannot be correct. Then tradition of exam-centered pedagogy. This is against our, again, the policy when it comes to the inclusive education. So which one is the correct? The moment I look upon the option, I could see yes, the second one is the correct. So how much time you take to, get the correct response for this question? Just a second, because we know when it comes to the inclusion of belonging to disadvantaged background require, what it is require, like that is social cultural diversity. That's it, something we need not to segregate them, we need not to have a standardized curriculum, we need to based upon our question, based upon the exam centered, we know this. So how are you going to crack this when you know what is the inclusive approach? So it is very important, like you need to go with the correct material. I'm again and again saying, बिकॉज इंक्लूजन में बहुत ज़्यादा मटेरियल रहता है, आपको लगता है कि और इतना मटेरियल हम कैसे पढ़ेंगे. जस्ट गो विद द राइट मटेरियल एंड यू विल एबल टू क्रैक इट, बिकॉज द क्वेश्चंस आर डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड फ्रॉम दोज मटेरियल ओनली. So I hope you will get to know the answer. I leave it this to you also. Then coming down to question number 27. See, I'm going this question paper. This is the last question paper. I'm going in detailed form so that you also get to know how to, read the questions which are coming from this particular section, because it will help you also to analyze. Now let's look upon this. So I want you to, get the correct response for this, and you all can give your response in the chat box. But yes, simultaneously we just look upon this. What is the question and what are the assertion and reason? So you could see, like here, in this child development pedagogy, we have done approximately, this is our 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth question. Yeah, so fifth question, this is there, and the second question which is on assertion and reason, rest of the three questions are direct questions. So if you can just calculate your time, the three option were a direct question, so within a second you can do it. But your time, most of the majority of the time for this particular section will be taken up by these questions, because these are the question with long statement, and it also requires you to understand what is the cause, what will be the effect, what is the statement, whether the statement is true, whether the statement is not true, or which one is false. So if you get to know this, then you can make it. And for this, it is always a good tip to keep a paper with you, and you get that, and then accordingly you will see that whether this statement is true or this statement is false. So let's now just go through with this assertion A. Adaptations such as audio tapes, use of computer software which provide text to speech input, extended time to complete assignment, facilitate students who are visually challenged. Now see, here visually challenged word is there. तो visually challenged में आपका ये जो क्वेश्चन कहाँ से आया, ये आपका आया टाइप्स ऑफ चिल्ड्रन विद डिसेबिलिटी. और ये जो क्वेश्चन अगर आप पढ़ेंगे तो ये आपको आरपीडब्ल्यूडी एक्ट में मिल जाएगा, राइट. और आरपीडब्ल्यूडी एक्ट का आई ऑल्सो वुड लाइक टू मेंशन कि टाइप ऑफ डिसेबिलिटी के साथ आपका उसके अंदर चैप्टर 3 है विच इज सेक्शन 16 एंड 17. उसमें जस्ट 6 to 7 पॉइंट्स हैं, स्पेसिफिक स्ट्रैटेजीज. यू जस्ट गो थ्रू विद दैट. अगर आप वो भी पढ़ लेंगे ना, उससे भी आपको काफ़ी कुछ आइडिया हो जाएगा कि किस तरह की स्ट्रैटेजीज देनी चाहिए, बिकॉज इन दैट इट हैज़ मेंशन्ड अबाउट कि किस तरह की सपोर्ट और फैसिलिटीज़ चाहिए इन बच्चों को. तो जब आप वो पढ़ेंगे तो आपको उसका आंसर, मतलब इसका जो आंसर आपको उस सेक्शन में से मिल जाएगा. तो आई रिक्वेस्ट ऑल द पार्टिसिपेंट्स हु आर अटेंडिंग दिस ऑल्सो नोट इट डाउन. इन द आरपीडब्ल्यूडी एक्ट यू ऑल्सो need to keep chapter 3 is there in this section 16 and 17. Just go through with that, what are the duties and responsibility of the education institution, which will makes you prepare for the inclusive education approach philosophy. And then the second section in this chapter 3 itself, सेक्शन 17, इट गिव्स यू कि क्या क्या उनको जो है फैसिलिटीज देनी चाहिए. तो सेक्शन 16 आप अच्छे से पढ़ लीजिए फ्रॉम द चैप्टर 3 ऑफ आरपीडब्ल्यूडी एक्ट, followed with the types of children with disabilities. Most of your answers, most of the, in fact, the questions will be covering from that. So here this is correct. Can we say that this is true? Yes. क्योंकि जब आपका विजुअल चैलेंज बच्चा आता है तो वो क्या है कि चाइल्ड कैन नॉट सी. जब बच्चा देख नहीं सकता तो क्या है उसके अंदर, ऑफ कोर्स द चाइल्ड, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ सेंस द चाइल्ड विल यूज, द चाइल्ड विल यूज द हियरिंग सेंस, राइट. अब इसके अंदर क्या ऑडियो टेप्स है, ऑडियो टेप्स में क्या आप सुन रहे हैं, टेक्स्ट टू स्पीच, टेक्स्ट में वो टेक्स्ट तो देख नहीं सकता, लेकिन जब वो आपको स्पीच में कन्वर्ट करेंगे तो क्या करेगा बच्चा, उसको क्या कर रहा है, सुन रहा है। एक्सटेंडेड टाइम टू कंप्लीट असाइनमेंट, यस, बिकॉज विजुअल इम्पेयर्ड बच्चों को अगर आप देखेंगे, मैंने आपको एक बुक बोला है हैंडबुक फॉर इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन, जो कि सीबीएसई ने डेवलप की है, और सीबीएसई ने हमारे को एग्जाम्पशंस दे रखे हैं और जो रिलैक्सेशन दे रखी है चिल्ड्रन विद स्पेशल नीड्स, उसके अंदर आप देखेंगे तो ये लिखा हुआ है कि एक्सटेंडेड टाइम देना है उनको, तो वो भी आप थोड़ा सा अपना रीडिंग मटेरियल में ऐड कर सकते हैं। एक्सटेंडेड टाइम टू कंप्लीट असाइनमेंट इज वन ऑफ द रिलैक्सेशन और बिल्कुल सेम द काइंड ऑफ द कंसेशन बीइंग गिवन टू सच चिल्ड्रन, तो ये भी आपका करेक्ट है। फैसिलिटेट लर्निंग फॉर स्टूडेंट्स हु आर विजुअली चैलेंज्ड, सो आई मेक इट करेक्ट, राइट। तो इसके लिए मतलब आपको जब आप ये क्वेश्चन पढ़ते हैं, अगर आपको स्ट्रैटेजीज पता है, विद इन अ सेकंड यू कैन से यस विजुअली इंपेयर्ड है, देख नहीं सकता, उसको क्या चाहिए, जो चीज जो कोई देख नहीं सकता उसको सुनने के लिए कुछ कुछ चाहिए मटेरियल, तो सुनने के लिए मटेरियल ये ऑडियो टेप्स है, टेक्स्ट टू स्पीच है, कंप्लीट करने के लिए असाइनमेंट करने के लिए आपको एक्सटेंडेड टाइम चाहिए, तो ये स्टेटमेंट बिल्कुल करेक्ट है। देन रीजन क्या है, टीचर शुड अडेप्ट द करिकुलम टू प्रोवाइड इक्विटी एंड मीट द नीड्स ऑफ डाइवर्स लर्नर। अब ये वाला भी देखो, अगर आप जब आपने ये वाला रीजन पढ़ा, ये आपका इंक्लूसिव फिलॉसफी के साथ रिलेट करता है, क्योंकि एक टीचर को क्या चाहिए कि करिकुलम को अडेप्ट करना है और हर इंडिविजुअल नीड्स के अकॉर्डिंगली आपको एजुकेशन देना है। तो इसके अंदर एक और चीज आती है इक्विटी वर्ड, तो आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए कि इक्विटी क्या है, इक्वालिटी क्या है, क्योंकि इक्विटी का मतलब क्या है कि हर बच्चे की नीड के अकॉर्डिंगली आप दे रहे हैं। अब यहाँ पर ये क्या है कि विजुअली चैलेंज्ड बच्चा है, उसकी नीड क्या है कि उसको कुछ ना कुछ ऐसा मटेरियल चाहिए जो कि वो सुन सके, देख तो वो सकता नहीं है, तो सुनने के लिए चाहिए, तो यहाँ पे अपनी करिकुलम को कैसे अडेप्ट किया, आपने उसकी नीड के अकॉर्डिंग अटैप किया, तो इक्विटी हो गया आपका करेक्ट है। एंड मीट द नीड्स ऑफ डाइवर्स लर्नर, यस, टीचर को एक करिकुलम इस तरह से अडेप्ट करना चाहिए जहां पे वो डाइवर्स लर्निंग नीड्स की बच्चों को अडेप्ट कर सके, तो ए भी ठीक है और आर भी ठीक है, यस और नो। नाउ लुक अप ऑन दिस स्टेटमेंट। अब देखो ये वाले जो होते हैं ना, ये बहुत टाइम लेते हैं, बट द मोमेंट यू नो कि स्ट्रैटेजीज क्या है, इंक्लूसिव अप्रोच क्या है, आप बहुत जल्दी विद इन जस्ट 10 to 15 सेकेंड, क्योंकि आपको देखो एक चीज और है कि जब आप क्वेश्चन रीड कर रहे हैं ना, तो अपने वन वर्ड बाय वर्ड रीड नहीं करना, यू जस्ट नीड टू हैव अ ग्लैंस। एक हमारा होता है फ्लुएंसी, फ्लुएंसी के साथ इंटरप्रिटेशन भी होता है, और वो इंटरप्रिटेशन हमारा तब डेवलप होता है जब हमारे को उस कॉन्सेप्ट के बारे में पता है, और वो कॉन्सेप्ट के बारे में कब पता होगा, जब हमारे पास अप्रोप्रिएट मटीरियल होगा, तो वो चीजें आपको अलाइंड करनी है, राइट। तो आपका प्रिपरेशन कैसा है, कैसे मैनेज कर रहे हैं आप रीडिंग मटेरियल को पढ़ते वक्त, और उसके बाद आप प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन पेपर को कैसे एनालाइज कर रहे हो, अलाइनिंग विद द मटेरियल विच यू हैव रेड। अगर आपने ये तीनों चीजें एक तरह से कर ली ठीक से, तो इंक्लूसिव एजुकेशन के क्वेश्चंस आप मोस्टली आपके करेक्ट होंगे, और ये मोस्ट स्कोरिंग भी है, क्योंकि इसके अंदर आपका बेसिकली आपके जो है ना, एक एटीट्यूड ऑल्सो मेक्स डिफरेंस। इंक्लूजन इज मोर अबाउट एटीट्यूड, तो आपके वो क्वेश्चन सब इसमें कवर हो जाएंगे। तो इसके अंदर हमारा ए भी ठीक है और आर भी ठीक है। तो जब आप ये क्वेश्चन देखते हो तो इसके अंदर देखो फर्स्ट ऑप्शन देखो, बहुत ए एंड आर आर ट्रू एंड आर इज अ करेक्ट एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ ए, तो क्या करेक्ट आंसर होगा आपका, क्या करेक्ट आंसर होगा, यस। तो इमिडिएटली देखो कितनी जल्दी ये वाला आपका होगा कि आपका फर्स्ट होगा, क्यों, बाकी देखो आप ए इज ट्रू बट आर इज फॉल्स, नहीं आर फॉल्स नहीं है, आर तो रीजन है उसका, हमें इक्विटी के अकॉर्डिंगली करिकुलम देना है, हमें डाइवर्स लर्नर नीड्स को फुलफिल करना है। देन बोथ ए एंड आर ट्रू, ठीक है, ए एंड आर ट्रू है, बट आर इज नॉट द करेक्ट। आपको लगता है कि आर करेक्ट एक्सप्लेनेशन नहीं है, करेक्ट एक्सप्लेनेशन है, क्योंकि इक्विटी के बारे में बात कर रहा है, डाइवर्स लर्नर्स के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो ये वाला ऑप्शन ऑटोमेटिकली रिमूव हो जाएगा। बोथ ए एंड आर आर फॉल्स, ये तो है ही नहीं करेक्ट, तो विच वन इज द करेक्ट आंसर, यस। अब ऑनेस्टली बताओ कि जब हम ये चीजें रिलेट कर रहे हैं, हाउ क्विकली यू एबल टू रिस्पॉन्ड, हाउ क्विकली यू एबल टू गेट द करेक्ट रिस्पॉन्स, बहुत जल्दी। तो सेम थिंग यू नीड टू सी। नाउ आई एम कमिंग टू द लास्ट क्वेश्चन, 29th क्वेश्चन सर प्लीज ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन पेपर। 29th, yes sir, yes 29 sir, yes। नाउ गिफ्टेड चिल्ड्रन, अब ये क्वेश्चन आपको देखते ही याद आ गया होगा कि हाँ हमने सेक्शन 3 में बात किया था, गिफ्टेड चिल्ड्रन की बात की थी, क्रिएटिव चिल्ड्रन की बात की थी, स्पेशली एबल्ड चिल्ड्रन की बात की थी। तो आपने देखा कि जो हमने अभी पिछला बताया आपको कि भी क्या आपका सेक्शंस हैं, क्या सब सेक्शंस हैं, और जब आप एक क्वेश्चन पेपर को एनालाइज कर रहे हैं, ऑल द 3 थिंग्स आर अलाइनिंग, राइट। क्योंकि अभी आपने वही इंक्लूसिव फिलॉसफी के बारे में बात किया, आपने लर्निंग डिफरेंट लर्नर नीड्स के बारे में बात किया, टीचिंग स्ट्रैटेजीज के बारे में बात किया। अब ये जो क्वेश्चन आया है आपका आया है थर्ड सबसेक्शन से, जो कि गिफ्टेड चिल्ड्रन के बारे में है। Now let's look upon this. Gifted children excel in all academics as well as co-curricular area. ये ऑप्शन है, ये हो सकता है, चलो ठीक है, मे बी राइट, हम इसको करते हैं कि रख लेते हैं. देन एग्जिबिट हाई कॉग्निटिव एबिलिटी एज वेल एज स्किल्स ऑफ सोशल कम्युनिकेशन. अब देखो, हमने जब इसका अगर हमें करेक्टरिस्टिक्स पता है कि कॉग्निटिव एबिलिटी तो हाई होती है लेकिन सोशल कम्युनिकेशन भी हाई होती है, ये हमारी करेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ गिफ्टेड चिल्ड्रन के साथ अलाइन नहीं हो रही है. तो हम ये जो है इसको हम थोड़ा साइड पे रखते हैं. गेट डिस्ट्रैक्टेड इजिली एंड हैव लो कॉन्सेंट्रेशन स्पैन. डिस्ट्रैक्टेड इजिली एंड हैव लो कॉन्सेंट्रेशन स्पैन, ये तो हो ही नहीं सकता, क्योंकि अगर कोई बच्चा गिफ्टेड चाइल्ड है तो उसका कॉन्सेंट्रेशन स्पैन लो हो ये ज़रूरी नहीं है. प्रोवाइडेड कि क्लासरूम इंटरेस्टेड है, प्रोवाइडेड उसकी टीचिंग स्ट्रैटेजी जो कि एसेलरेशन और एनरिचमेंट से रिलेटेड है उससे है, तो वो कॉन्सेंट्रेशन उसका नहीं होगा, मतलब लो नहीं होगा. देन फोर्थ इज एब्जॉर्ब इन्फॉर्मेशन क्विकली एंड एक्यूरेटली. सी, अब ये आपका एक डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है देखा जाए तो. अगर आपको गिफ्टेड चिल्ड्रन की करेक्टरिस्टिक्स के बारे में पता है, आपको पता है कि वो बच्चों की क्या इंक्लूसिव स्ट्रैटेजीज है, किस तरह से वो लर्न करते हैं, या उनके क्या मतलब मेजर बिहेवियर क्या है, तो जैसे ही आप इनके ऑप्शंस पढ़ेंगे यू कैन क्विकली गिव द रिस्पॉन्स. यस और नो? Yes. So how many of you feel you are confident in clearing this inclusive education paper looking upon this previous year question paper of year 2026? I want all of you to respond in the chat box. Yes. Do you think now you are being confident enough in clearing this? Oh, ये तो हमारे बाएं हाथ का खेल है. हमें पता चल गया कि हमारा क्या appropriate learning material है, हमने कहाँ से पढ़ना है, कौन से subsections हैं हमारे, और किस तरह के questions हैं, और उन questions को किस तरह से हमने crack करना है. तो हमने देखा कि जो questions आए, direct questions आ रहे हैं हमारे, उनके क्या आ रहे हैं, या assertions या रीजन से रिलेटेड आ रहे हैं. डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चंस हैं तो वो तो मैं बहुत ही एकदम से सेकंड्स में कर दूंगी. assertions और रीजन के आ रहे हैं तो मुझे थोड़ा सा अंडरस्टैंडिंग होना चाहिए उन लर्निंग नीड्स के बारे में, डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ चिल्ड्रन विद स्पेशल नीड्स और इंक्लूसिव फिलॉसफी के बारे में. मुझे अगर वो पता है तो मैं उसको क्या करूंगी कि बहुत कम टाइम में कर लूंगी. So I request everybody, just look upon the previous year question paper and just find out what all the questions are there related to the inclusive education based upon the subsections which we have discussed, and see what are the type of questions. Is it a direct question, or is it a question which related to cause and effect, or which related to the statement रिलेटेड टू ट्रू एंड फॉल्स. अगर आप वो देखेंगे तो उसके बाद आपको पता चल जाएगा. अच्छा, असर्शन और असर्टिवनेस के ऊपर तो रीजंस के ऊपर तो 2 क्वेश्चंस आए हैं, तो मुझे अपनी रीडिंग एबिलिटी, सो इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि आपकी रीडिंग जो एबिलिटी है वो भी हो, क्योंकि जितनी जल्दी आप रीड करेंगे, रीडिंग करने के बाद फ्लुएंसी है, लेकिन उसको कितनी जल्दी इंटरप्रेट कर रहे हैं, स्पेशली व्हेन इट कम्स टू योर क्वेश्चंस रिलेटेड टू assertions and reason, it is equally important. So for here, like we have completed the previous year question related to 26. Now let's have a glance quickly upon the next question paper which is related to inclusive education. Yes, this is the question paper of 24 itself, and let's look upon the paper 1 related to child development pedagogy. Yes sir, go to the question number 4 please. अब हम quickly करेंगे because we have less time with us. Now I want you to answer. Sir, question number 4 please. अब आप इसका आंसर देंगे. पहले तो आप ये देखें, challenges in social communication are evident in. अब ये वाला जो क्वेश्चन है अगर आप देखते हैं तो ये आपको लगता है कि ये तो बिल्कुल डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है, और ये क्वेश्चन आया है आपका सबसेक्शन 2 से, जिसमें हमने बात की है चिल्ड्रन विद डाइवर्स नीड. अब सोशल कम्युनिकेशन का अगर आपको देखो करेक्टरिस्टिक्स पता है, ADHD के बारे में हम करें, नहीं, वी आर नॉट कॉन्फिडेंट. ADHD में अटेंशन की प्रॉब्लम होती है, इंपल्सिविटी होती है इन बच्चों की. सेरेब्रल पॉलिसी नहीं, सेरेब्रल पॉलिसी जो होती है मोटर प्रॉब्लम होती है बेसिकली, राइट. व्हेन इट कम्स टू द ऑटिज्म स्पेक्ट्रम डिसऑर्डर, यस, ऑटिज्म स्पेक्ट्रम डिसऑर्डर है जो सोशल और कम्युनिकेशन स्किल से रिलेटेड है इन लोगों का, बिकॉज दे आर मोर सेंसिटाइज्ड. तो जैसे ही आपने ये ASD देखा टर्म, आपको पता चला कि ये तो सोशल के साथ है, क्विकली यू गोइंग टू आंसर इट. लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी नहीं है, बिकॉज ये जो प्रॉब्लम है एकेडमिक डिफिकल्टीज के साथ रिलेटेड होता है. तो ये आपका क्वेश्चन है, डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन है. और honestly tell me, like how much time you have taken when you read this question and to reply it? I hope less than a second. So that's, the beauty. If you're going to know the right material, you're going to analyze the question, you're able to crack it like anything. Next question, sir. Question number 6. We'll just quickly go with this because we're left with very less time. Yes. Dysgraphia is characterized by, अब बताओ कौन? Yes. सर थोड़ा सा ऊपर. Yes. ग्राफिया किससे रिलेटेड होती है प्रॉब्लम? राइटिंग से. तो जैसे मैंने ये पढ़ा, बाकी सारी ऑप्शन मुझे देखने की जरूरत नहीं है. 2 इज द राइट आंसर. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन सर. क्वेश्चन नंबर 8. अब यहां आ गया आपका असर्शन और रीजन का. अब ये क्वेश्चन थोड़ा सा मेरा टाइम लेगा क्योंकि इसके अंदर जो स्टेटमेंट है वो क्या है? लेंथी स्टेटमेंट है. तो टीचर्स शुड यूज मल्टी सेंसरी मटेरियल टू केटर टू नीड्स ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स इन अ इंक्लूसिव क्लासरूम. ये ठीक है. इंक्लूसिव क्लासरूम शुड अडॉप्ट स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन ऑफ करिकुलम मटेरियल एज वेल एज असेसमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी. अब स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन जो है ये थोड़ा ठीक नहीं है. स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन नहीं होता. जब हम इंक्लूजन की बात करते हैं तो हम क्या बात करते हैं? जनरली अडेप्टेशन इन टर्म ऑफ व्हाट? लाइक अडेप्टेशन इन टर्म ऑफ करिकुलम. तो आपने क्या करना है? असर्शन देखो, रीजन देखो और उसके अकॉर्डिंगली क्विकली रिस्पॉन्स करो. तो ये वाले जो क्वेश्चंस हैं ये आपके थोड़ा सा टाइम लेंगे. इसको आपने थोड़ा सा इंटरप्रेट जल्दी करना है. नेक्स्ट इज क्वेश्चन नंबर 10 सर. जल्दी से कैन वी मूव टू 10. अब हम देख लेते हैं कि डायरेक्ट है इनडायरेक्ट है बस. अब देखो ये वाला जो क्वेश्चन आ गया ये भी आपका असर्शन और रीजन के ऊपर आ गया. तो आपको जो है थोड़ा सा इसको स्टेटमेंट को पढ़ना है, इसको इंटरप्रेट करना है. कौन सी स्टेटमेंट ट्रू है उसको क्लिक कर दो. आर उससे रिलेट है कि नहीं है उसको ट्रू कर दो. अगर दोनों स्टेटमेंट ट्रू है तो उसके अकॉर्डिंगली यू कैन सिलेक्ट द मोस्ट अप्रोप्रिएट आंसर. और इन क्वेश्चन में आपकी जो ऑप्शंस आती हैं वो इसी तरीके की ही 4 ऑप्शंस ही आएंगी. इसके अलावा ऑप्शंस नहीं होती हैं. तो आपको असर्शन और रीजन का अंडरस्टैंडिंग तभी होगी जब आपको इंक्लूजन की अप्रोच और जो कॉन्सेप्ट पता होगा. सर मूव टू द क्वेश्चन नंबर 13 प्लीज. यस. अब काइनेस्थेटिक लर्नर प्रेफर टू लर्न थ्रू. अब काइनेस्थेटिक लर्नर कौन होते हैं? इसके लिए आपको वीएकेटी अप्रोच पता होना चाहिए. विजुअल, ऑडिटरी, काइनेस्थेटिक एंड टेक्टाइल. काइनेस्थेटिक आर द वन जो कि बॉडी मूवमेंट्स हैं. तो जैसे आप ये क्वेश्चन देखोगे डूइंग एंड मूविंग इज द राइट आंसर. तो कितना कम टाइम लगा, विद इन अ सेकेंड यू एबल टू आंसर दिस. देन लास्ट इज 22. सर प्लीज कम डाउन प्लीज. 22 क्वेश्चन पे हम जल्दी से चलते हैं. दिस इज द लास्ट वन. हम देखते हैं. बाकी आई लीव द होमवर्क टू यू ऑल पीपल. अपना प्रीवियस ईयर क्वेश्चन पेपर देखो CTET की वेबसाइट पे जाके और इसको एनालाइज करो. एंड आई एम श्योर व्हेन यू गोइंग टू एनालाइज इट, व्हाटएवर द टिप्स वी हैव डिस्कस्ड इन दिस सेक्शन, you will able to do it in a second. It won't take much time. The only thing is कि we need to have a right strategy. We need to manage our time and most importantly we need to go with the right material. हम लोग बहुत कुछ मटेरियल पढ़ते हैं बट राइट मटेरियल इज इंपॉर्टेंट. सो दिस इज फॉर द 22. व्हेन यू सी ADHD के ऊपर क्वेश्चन आ गया, आपको पता है ADHD का क्वेश्चन अगर आ गया तो उसके अकॉर्डिंगली यू नीड टू नो. So I hope like this is the question paper we have discussed over the last 2 years and you have a pretty understanding of how to attempt the inclusive education component and what kind of material you need to go through with that and how to manage your time. So with this I just end up this session and I really hope you had some insight and some confidence have been developed in cracking the inclusive education question. So I say best of luck to all the aspirant and I'm pretty sure you're going to crack this inclusive education. And with this I would also like to thank the Director of Education of Andaman Nicobar and Madam Sangeeta, especially the Principal of Diet and SI and all the entire team of Diet who have taken us from the mainland to here to interact with you people. So once again best of luck and I'm sure you're going to do your best and make your state proud. Thank you everybody.